Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's Sunday for some of us. It's Monday morning for others, but it's time for the Wrestling Inc. Forbidden Door after show. And have we got a show for you? Mercedes is still Moné. A New Japan Pro Wrestling has declared a new IWGP World Champion, and it's still Swerve's house. But before we get into all of that, allow me to introduce the crew. I'm Jack Farmer, being joined by Brooklyn's own Flobo Boyce. Flobo,
yes, what's going on?
How did your city represent?
Are you somehow conflating Brooklyn with Long Island, even though Brooklyn is on the island of Long and it's culturally separate? Good sir.
Still New York, right?
I mean, it's New York, but that's like say, oh man,
your
it's
city.
Well, it was great, man. I want to say we showed out, but at times I wondered why. But look, MJF was there, Jim Jones was there. We were fine.
Yeah, it's funny how different people react to their cities, because you said, like, geographically, how close is Brooklyn to Long Island? How many miles are we talking here?
Technically, physically, 0. Brooklyn is the most western county, or Kings County is on the island of Long, so it's physically on the island.
And here you talk about differences. I'm from Tacoma, but I'm like, yeah, I'm from Seattle. I'm from I'm from the Northwest. I'll take the biggest geographic chunk and be like, whatever, man. That's where I'm from.
We'll be like, I'm from Gates Avenue, apartment 4C on the corner, bro. Like we're so specific. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, even now, I'm just like, I'm from the West Coast. Like I say, I'm from LA. I live in LA, but as you know, I live nowhere near what most people would say is actual LA.
We just pretend it's more fancier than where we do live. You know, I live 3 miles from the beach. Where? Don't worry about it.
I do live close to the beach.
Also do a freeway, but that's besides the point.
Hey, look, but I'm on the right side of the freeway. That's the trick.
Shout to property values, bro.
You know, this here in Southern California, there's the west side of the freeway and the east side of the freeway, and baby,
and it matters. It matters.
It's not by much, but
yeah, don't they estás, get it? Yeah, I'm from Flatlands, Brooklyn. He's like, I'm from the Bronx, not New York. He gets it.
Yeah, lots of folks coming in. Dante, thanks for coming through. Sean Bush as well, saying Swerve is the best on the planet. Daniel Barry saying, what's up? Tommy saying, yes, and stalking you with a little puppy emoji. Kevin Robick, I hope I'm saying that right, lurking tonight. Thanks for lurking. And of
Isn't
course,
that Rabish? Isn't that Polish?
Rabish?
I don't know.
Is it
I don't know. I'm guessing.
I am the world's worst at pronouncing names. I always try.
Yeah,
to get
Jack
it right.
Farmer, you got an easy one.
I know. I've never had my name mispronounced ever. But of course, Ricky Sinclair here as well. Thanks, guys, for showing up late on a Sunday. We got a really good show set up for you guys. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun chatting today, because Flobo and I, we go way back, Flobo, and you and I, we have no problems arguing with each other. We have no problems telling each other you're wrong, and I think we're going to say that a lot tonight. With Tutgraph saying Jack and Flobo behind the Forbidden Door review. Huffman Elite Trading says, how is AEW? Huffman's like, I don't even need to tune in, because these two fellas, they're going to get it all sorted out. They're going to tell me how it went, and I think it was a very good show. It was. Let's get it out of the way. First off, let's just say this. We can get this done. We'll say it, and then we can move on with our lives, Flobo.
Whoa.
It's a long show. It's a long show.
Yeah.
Because we know I've done a few of these now, and I know if we don't get it out of the way, we're going to spend the next hour going, well, it's a long show. Well, it's a long show. Let's just get it out.
Yeah,
it's a long show, right, Flobo?
I mean, it's a school night. It's technically a Monday morning. You know what I mean? Like back in my day, all pay-per-views were on Sunday, so it's kind of interesting to do that. It was a long show, but unlike other promotions, you are paying a premium price to get a premium product. Why not have as much cake as you can eat?
You know, it's interesting. I went on to social media and I asked the tough question. I said, if AEW had a 5-match show, would you still pay the $50 for it? And a resounding 60% said, actually, I think it was more. I think it was more than that. Let me check the actual numbers instead of just making it up as I go here.
Oh, look at this guy. I did independent research. I put myself over. Look at the numbers I crunched. Yeah. Doesn't matter.
I quote, if you're someone who currently buys AEW pay-per-views, would you still spend $49.99 if there were only 5 matches? Now, I said this to the world, full disclosure, I like the 5-match shows. I would rather pay for 5 matches. 5 banger, great cream of the crop matches. That's what I'd prefer.
Right.
72% of respondents said no, they would not. They would prefer the longer shows. Flobo, does that shock you?
It does. And I'm not here to knock AEW, but I would say their presentation from Dynamite to Collision is at a certain level, and their pay-per-views are pretty much similar. So I'm not saying it's hard to determine, but besides the match length themselves, you don't feel you're watching something special on the surface. Now, everyone on the roster, they deliver, and we'll get to how they delivered here tonight. So if I'm going to pay $50 and it's not on the surface of the moon or in Atlantis, it has to be something of value. We count value by the number of matches. So it's kind of like a logistical thing, you know? Then you go to Applebee's when money's tight, you buy the 2 entrees. You want those entrees to be as large as possible so you can bring some home.
I like it, when you do the entree comparison. I agree with you, because I famously, world famously, I don't like long shows. Like if there's a movie and it's 2 hours and 1 minute, I will throw a hissy fit about it. I hate movies that go over 2 hours. I was at a concert recently. It went 3 hours. I was like, come on, guys, let's wrap this up. I like condensed.
Wait, were you yelling from the stands? Like, hey, can you wrap this up?
Hey,
I got things to do.
I was doing this.
Just wrap it up, B.
Hey, wrap it up. I'm done. We're good.
Hilarious.
We're good.
He's banned.
So for me, like, I love a tight 2.5 hour show for wrestling. 5 matches. I love it. I really enjoy that. I know this was a good show. I enjoyed myself, but I'd prefer the shorter show. I would be as an AEW fan, and I am proud. You know, sometimes people would get nervous about saying if they're fans of certain companies for some reason. I'm a fan of AEW. I like the shows. I would rather they were five matches or so. I'd rather 2.5, 3 hours. I think that would be the best route to go personally. And then a lot of these matches that we'll talk about, I think they would have been fantastic on Dynamite. I think they would really be great for Dynamite shows.
Yeah,
that's my thought.
I say if you're going to do a 5-hour show, you don't have to start at 8 p.m. You can give us a 6:30 start time. You can give us a 6 p.m. start time, or even an afternoon show every once in a while. I think that's what it is. Now, we're spoiled because we both live on the West Coast. It's only 9 o'clock here. But if I was on the East Coast, it's already Monday morning. And I theoretically have work, school, or in my case, checking emails to do. I mean, I want to be able to have my rest of my night, you know?
Well, let's talk about this show. Let's actually get into the nitty-gritty of what happened. Before we do, as always, I want to thank everyone for joining us. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, 5-star review. Of course, we're new to doing these after shows after the big pay-per-views or PLEs, depending on the different brands. So, of course, your support is going to help maintain this schedule. So if you want to see more of these shows after the big shows, please like, comment, share, subscribe. I'm begging you here. I'm using the please button. So do that. If you're here with us, of course, if you're lurking, always good to see you. Well, I'm not seeing you. I guess that's the point. You're lurking, but I'm glad you're here. Yeah. I want to shout out to I Am Error. We got Kevin stalking you. Tommy O, as mentioned. Daniel, Barry, Sean Bush, Adonde. I'm so used to saying Adonde. I got to work on it. I'm sorry. Max Feldman, Ebony Washington coming through. Peanut Butter Joshua, beer.
Money.
Thank you. Jeroy J, Stephen Camp, Vanita Bragg, and Sean Bush. I say Sean Bush already, but whatever. I'll say it again. Fernando, Toni, and everyone else. Appreciate you, Huffman. Appreciate you guys. Let's talk about the show. Now, the show feels extra long, I think, because 0 hour. And I love a good pre-show, but I think when it gets stacked with matches as well, you feel like you have to watch that. And even though it's pre-show, it feels kind of required to watch. Now, this time around, we had 5 matches. Jeez, 5 matches in the pre-show. Serpentico lost to Kyle Fletcher. Then we had Malachi Black and Brodie King beat Private Party, Gabe Kidd and Roderick Strong, and Kyle O'Reilly and Ishii Chris Statlander and Momo Watanabe lost to Willow Nightingale and Tam Nakano. And then in the Owen Hart Foundation women's tournament quarterfinal, Soraya lost to Mariah May, and Mystico and the Lucha Brothers beat I don't know, Tsuji. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah, Lij. We'll say I always hop on.
That's why I didn't have it written.
Lij. Yeah.
And Takahashi. So a lot of stuff happened. 5 matches. Any takeaways from this one? We don't need to get into every single one of these. I think everyone would agree we don't need to necessarily break down every hold in these matchups. But any big takeaways personally from you? Any wrestlers that stood out? Anything like that?
Well, I think it was the matches that made the preliminary card, excuse me. Not saying that any one of these matches are out of place in 0 Hour, but I thought for sure that the Willow Nightingale match would have been like the good palate cleanser. But all the fact the Owen Hart Cup is back stronger than ever. Mariah May really got ourselves into a good position. That would be the match that I would like to dissect later on if I have the chance.
I got to give a shout out to Sean Bush says, I get why long pay-per-views aren't everyone's thing, but I'm a single nerd with no kids. So I'm just like, feed it into my veins.
Child free, Sean Bush. That's like a good wrestling gimmick. This Friday, you got a match against child free Sean Bush.
That would actually be kind of a great character. And all their vignettes are just them doing whatever they want. And
Right,
it's like fun,
eating ice cream for breakfast. Yeah, it's great.
Like one vignette is just him like shooting hoops. Like, yeah, just figure I'd come out and shoot some hoops. Nothing else going on.
No, because I'm child free, baby.
Hey, you know what I did this weekend? Whatever I wanted.
I'm better than you, and you know it.
It's like, oh yeah, I got a new PS5 with all that disposable income I have.
Right, all this lying around. What's childcare?
Oh, Sean Bush, thanks for coming through. Yeah, I had a couple things I've said for a long time. If you followed me on Twitter, I say it just about every time he comes on. Brodie King, I am such a fan of this guy. I want to see him on TV more. I feel like he's someone who could be a massive star in AEW. I think he's someone who could be a focal point. Malachi Black and the rest of the House of Black as well, obviously. But Brodie King, to me, is the one that stands out as something that, like, he has no previous affiliation anywhere else as far as like the WWE or anything like that. He's got a great look. He wrestles well. And this is one of those guys I think can stand out on your roster. Gabe Kidd also, man. I like this guy. He's a little spitfire. I mean, he's not little, but you know what I mean. He's great.
Yeah. You know what? I'm with you. I know I don't want to ruin too much things, but sometimes I kind of wish that guys like Brodie King or even the Lucha Brothers were in this box and Tony got to shuffle the card a bit, because there are some people I wish that had more of a feature, more of a preview, more of a run. But I think today, if people like you are saying that on the Twitter space or the X space, I'm not sure that sounds kosher or not, they can actually feature them more later on.
Yeah. Future Hall of Famer Jimmy Corderas stopping through. Thanks for coming through, Jimmy. Oh, it's always but it says Jim Corderas though. Jim, do you go by Jim? Have I just assumed Jimmy this whole time?
No.
But Mr. Corderas says no Prince Nana coffee. So just wanted to say, what's up? Have a good one, gents. I know you will. Thanks for coming through, Jimmy. Jimmy, by the way, not just a future Hall of Famer, not just someone who I guarantee will be up at that podium someday. But it's a good all-around person.
Yeah.
Real treat getting to know Jimmy here at Wrestling Inc.
A real treat.
A real treat.
Delight. Yes.
Sergio says Gabe Kidd is the future of New Japan Pro Wrestling.
I can't argue with that.
Yeah, just very one of those guys. He has an accent, so I hate the comparison because it feels like it's just because of the accent, but very Conor McGregor-esque kind of trash talk style to him, where he just feels like he wants to pick a fight with everybody, and I love it.
You need something like that, yeah,
because him, like, I remember like, in the match, Brodie King barking at him, and him just like barking back, like, oh my god, this guy wants to fight everybody. I love it. I want to see him and Juice Robinson get into it. Like, they'd be like fired up. It'd be great.
Yeah, hard heavy hitting.
They should. Oh my god, I'm gonna. You know, I have the Thigh Guy stable. I need to set up the over caffeinated stable of all the guys who just are high energy and
can you be a member of both? Like you have to choose. You're like, I have energy, but I have a thigh. Okay.
Yeah, it's well, you can, but it's tough because it's hard to use that much energy but keep the bulk, you know?
Right. Good point.
But also Mariah May gets the win. I thought that was a big one as well. I thought that was a really big, important moment. I feel like that was a big match that maybe deserved a spot on the card, but I can't say that because I said 5 matches only, so I'm a hypocrite.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Mariah May's on a fantastic run, and we saw her later on the main show as well. But I thought Owen Hart Cup would have all been on the main show, personally.
Yeah. Of course, Tut Graf said I was lurking until I heard Jimmy's name. Hey, Jimmy.
Oh, so that's why he stopped lurking?
Tuck. What? So we're chopped liver on the show? Come on.
Apparently.
Lots of good stuff for in the comments here for Brodie King as well. Anyone in the chat, let me know your final thoughts on the 0 hour show. We got a lot to cover here on a jam-packed Forbidden Door. Of course, the main event, I think, really blew the door off the Forbidden. But I thought it was really good.
Doors have hinges, Jack.
We'll cover that at the end. This is a tease, everyone. Flobo, any tease you want to leave for that main event?
Well, I want to say the crowd definitely went to a different level, and that's always a good sign because it was starting at 11:40 p.m. or 11:35 p.m. So shout out to them.
Yeah. Huffman Elite Train says, I saw that match. 0 hour was all I saw. You only watched 0. I was actually wondering who just watches the pre-show. Huffman, since you just watched the pre-show, let me know, have you ever been sold on a pay-per-view purely from the pre-show? For instance, have you ever been on the fence about getting a pay-per-view? You watched the pre-show and then said, you know what? I'm going to spend the money. I'm just curious because a lot of times we talk about this is to sell the pay-per-view. I was wondering how many people are actually sold at the 1 yard line.
That's a hard one for me, right? Because I think as an adult, you kind of, at least I make a decision like, okay, I'm going to do it. But in my 20s, it was like, I was a lot easier swayed back then, you know?
Yeah. So, Mr. 412, by the way, with the super chat says, I live in Tacoma, but I tell my friends back home in Pittsburgh that I live in Seattle so they can understand where I live.
Too.
I do that exact thing. Mr. 412, I'm from Tacoma. In fact, I grew up in Parkland specifically, representing the PKD of Parkland.
No one ever says that. Who ever said represent the PKD?
People from Parkland. The Parkland.
You're the only person that showed up in that city. It's AI generated. It's not even real.
Yes. From Parkland. Very, very cool. Thanks for coming through, Mr. 412. And Huffman says, no, Jack, I've always been an all or nothing guy. I used to order all AEW pay-per-views every time ahead the day of or day before. So I've just really grown tired of AEW due to horrible booking by Tony Khan.
If he thinks he's bad, I mean, I tried my booking. It's even worse.
Nah, if you saw my WWE 2K universe, you'd be offended. Akira Tozawa for the champion.
He's like on a Roman Reigns run too, like 4 years in game. Fire goes off.
He's beating everybody too.
Everybody.
He beat every version of John Cena.
It's like 6 of them in the game this year.
So we start the show off with MJF versus Hechicero. Hometown boy gets the win. Overall thoughts on MJF's return so far?
Overall, I like it. I love the new iteration of MJF. I don't think he was ever stale, but as somebody who is familiar with the brand Burberry, I always wondered, is that the same scarf? And as someone who's better than me, I could probably get one by now if I saved up. So I love the fact that it looks a bit more exclusive. I love this run from MJF. Here's a question I have for you, Jack. Was this match at the wrong time? I felt like he came out super early, dropped a couple of elbows, and was like, deuces.
This is where I would be really bad at booking because I don't like to wait. I don't like the delayed gratification. So I would have probably opened with the world title match. I want to see everything right away. This is what I'm one of those guys. Like, I want to see this. Let's watch it. Why wait? You know, it's the day after Thanksgiving. Let me open my Christmas presents. Why are we waiting? I don't get it.
Wow.
So, not sure I'm the best person to ask, but I get it. I think his music hitting to start the show, you get the crowd reaction at home. You get those good feels. You get him with a big win. people like it. I think you start the show off with a good feel. So I absolutely get why you would start the show with MJF. And as far as his return, I agree. I like it so far. I like that it's a little different, but I also like that he's not. He didn't come out with a whole different. He hasn't been back like I'm a whole different person now.
Yeah,
He's the same person, but he's a little different. Which I think he had to do because I think we've seen a little bit too much of him for him to go all the way in one direction. He needs to be this is who I am, but I'm being a real person, which I think is what every superstar eventually gets to. Eventually you become, this is who I am, and I'm not playing a character. This is how I act. I've never met MJF. I don't know how he really is, but this feels more like a person being who he is instead of playing a character, if that makes sense.
Kind of torn because he threw out a first pitch for the Mets a season ago. I'm the biggest MJF fan, but you're right. I think about the top characters of all time. I mean, Undertaker is an outlier, right? Most times it is kind of like yourself turned way up with him maturing as a man. Now we see that mature as a character as well. I'm on board. But Hechicero, man, he looked pretty tough out there. He tried. The boy tried.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was fine. A lot of people were upset that he didn't have a bigger matchup. Again, I don't like to wait, so of course, I would have liked a bigger matchup too. Why not? Let me get, and that's not a shot against Hechicero. Again, when you're on a company's programming, if you're not familiar, if that audience doesn't see you regularly, you're probably not going to get the same kind of reaction or the same kind of buy-in to that individual. But I think it's fine now, especially because I feel like we're in a grace period with MJF, him coming back. I always say, I don't like when someone comes back and they're immediately the person at the top of the card. If he just came back and said, I'm challenging for the world title, cool. But it also feels like now you're in a weird spot where if he loses, he looks bad. If he wins, it makes the champ look bad. Give him some stuff to do before he gets to that world title shot. I think he's been doing that. But now Flobo, I feel like that grace period as of tonight is over. I need to see him start getting into some real meat and potato matchups here. What do you want to see from MJF going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think MJF at the top of the card is something we need to see. Swerve and MJF may not be the marquee match this week, but eventually when you have those two men both holding Richard's prize in the past, their backgrounds, it will totally work. And AEW, even though sometimes they kind of forget or kind of don't use the ranking system, still has one. So MJF definitely needs to get his wins up and definitely can have his way up there. So while that's being built up, I would love to see that program down the line. So that is definitely what I have in sight. Put him in the main event scene. I know there's a bunch of titles, but he has to be in the richest prize of the game, that division.
Absolutely. Mike Martin says, hi, Jack, and happy belated birthday, Flo.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it, man. An old man.
Yes. And I also wanted to say you also got a shout out for a tough loss for the Mets.
You didn't have to mention that. You didn't have to mention that. Why'd you? I was having a birthday wish. I was feeling good. And then you got to mention the fact we lost in the 11th inning today.
Like Lady Justice, I have to even the scales.
You don't. You don't have to because you're not. You opted into doing that. Jerk.
I do it for love of the game.
This is awful. I quit.
In the chat, let me know, or in the comments, let me know who you want to see MJF mix it up with next. Who would you like to see him face at All In, for instance?
Oh, yeah. All In.
We move on, though. We got the trios match. Okada and the Young Bucks versus Tanahashi and the Acclaimed. Elite get the win. Post-match, Okada tries to continue the assault on Tanahashi, but Billy Gunn makes the save. I continue my silent crusade for Billy Gunn to be AEW World Champion. But Flobo, they've got the win now. What's next for Okada and the Young Bucks and the Elite?
Wait. Billy Gunn is champ? Really? In 2024?
Look at that fella, man. He comes out and he is a barn of a human being. How could he not be the world champion?
I mean,
I got 2 words for you.
Go on.
Scissor me, daddy.
Okay, you know what? Yes, to answer your question before you went on that tangent about Billy Gunn being world champ, weird. The match was great. I do think that Okada got ripped to shreds with Max Caster's rap, which I thought was pretty good. It popped me, as we say here in Wrestling Inc. But the Elite with Okada has an issue, and the issue is not so much them not being believable. It's kind of like you can't tell if they are truly evil or this is like them trolling everybody, saying, yes, it's okay to hate us. And it's okay if they hate us, and it's fine. You've done your job. Next thing you do is have another win lined up. But if you really want someone to take you down, well, you really think you're on top of the mountain, Okada needs to go out there and be your heavy truly. He can't be the third guy in the group. He has to be ace number one because he's Okada. What's going on?
I mean, I think that's what hurt with that rap the most is the comments about Okada, because we all know Okada is one of the greatest. Okay. I know that. I'm not an idiot. He hasn't really been presented as one of the greatest. He's presented as like a silly buddy who's having some jokes and having a laugh. I feel like the Elite, I've said a million times now, they need someone who is vicious. They need someone who wants to kill everybody. I keep saying someone like, it doesn't have to be him. I mean, it'd be great, but like a Christian Cage style person. Christian Cage isn't there to have fun. Christian Cage isn't there to get some laughs and pop the crowd. Christian Cage is there to hurt people, assert dominance, do terrible things. They need someone like that in the Elite. Because if it's all just fun and games, it's kind of annoying, but it's also like,
right?
You're not a threat, though. You're annoying.
I get you. Two things have to happen. One of them hit the nail on the head. There really has to be someone to let us know whether or not this is legitimately an evil group. Evil meaning they're trying to make trouble for everyone, or they're like Deadpool and have the time of their life. And I'm going to use my words carefully here. I like Okada. He is a guy that can elevate everything. I don't think the championship he has can be elevated because it does seem like it was a tournament win, like a cup or like a title, like a word title, not a championship. So when you have someone like Okada, who is a third person in this group, who is not presenting this title or elevating that title division, I wonder how valuable it is, which is just crazy because I remember every time Okada had a match, it was must-see TV. That's kind of a red flag, or at least an orange flag for any promoter, or if your guy is not necessarily main event number one.
I feel like with the Elite too, something they're missing, and this is kind of a thing I've said about a couple of groups within AEW right now. I also don't really know what their goal is. Like, they technically already run the company. So what do they do? I don't really like, they're not trying to take power from anybody, and no one's really trying to stop them. It's just sort of, you're who we're having matches with. So I don't really understand what their motive is.
That's what I felt. So this is the idea about having character first and having a storyline ever. I do think there was a bit of time to lean into, hey, these guys are competitors, but they're actually working behind the scenes. Great. It's a character. Now you have a character. What's the story? They don't really have that quite yet. Not saying it's over, because they're still legitimately the bosses, but let me know why I should hate you, why I should love you. What do you want me to do? Who should I care for? Who should really put the pie in your face there, Jack? Who?
It's Adonde says the goal to make everyone tuck in their shirts. Well, then call me evil, because everyone should tuck in their shirts.
Everyone knows you're a heel. Name one thing in Parkland, Washington. You can't do it.
Not everyone knows I'm a heel. Some people think I'm a nice guy still.
Oh, that's awful.
I will say this is something that bugs me. This is a gripe, and we'll move on. And this is bigger than just this matchup. You know, this crowd, they wanted so badly to see Okada versus Tanahashi during this matchup. They were cheering for it. They were like, when they were teasing it, they wanted it. They kept cutting it off. They've had 63 matches. What are we excited for? We've seen it. But this isn't just AEW. This isn't just Forbidden Door. It's also the NXT TNA thing, where they're like, people will be like, oh man, now they're working together. You know who could challenge for the NXT title? Nick Nemeth. He's done it already. He's been there already. Like, what if Matt Hardy shows up? Matt Hardy's been there already. I've seen it. I want to see the people I haven't seen before. What are we doing here?
In all fairness, if Matt Hardy did show up, I'll probably be with you with that. But I think the difference here with Okada Tanahashi is that it's up close. I remember, and I'm dating myself, the one night stand, the original one night stand, and at the Hammerstein Ballroom. Yeah, Tanaka and Mike Awesome fought every single week on ECW and TNN, but it was like right in front of our face, right here in Long Island, cheap pop. You know what I mean? It's a little bit different.
Well, that was a little different because we didn't think we were ever going to see them again. that was more of a farewell. These guys aren't done. This isn't like the end of their run. They'll probably have another match again.
We got spoiled, man. 3 years ago, Forbidden Door didn't even exist. We called it Forbidden. You know, I think it's kind of a cool moment.
Like getting excited about the matches we've already seen seems a little weird. I mean, I would like, shouldn't we be more excited to see Tanahashi versus Matt Jackson or Okada versus Max Caster?
No.
Yes.
Of all the people in that match, and not disrespecting anybody, everyone is doing great. Those things in our wrestling person's mind doesn't really match up because we can already see who's going to win. The combination where we go, oh, I wonder who would win in this particular fight right there. They'd pull that card, man. Max Caster against Okada. It's like 2 second pan. It's like Superman fought Batman and Superman had this laser vision. It'll be a panel and a half.
Really? Because what I saw was Max Caster cook Okada tonight.
Heck yeah, he did with his words. It's a fighting sport.
With his words.
Yeah, exactly. Use your words. You're a nice person.
Everyone in the chat, everyone in the comments, let me know. Am I crazy? Like, I want to see new matches, not ones I've seen a million times when we have these crossovers. Sean Bush with the crying, laughing emoji at Okada versus Caster.
Absolutely.
I think, you know what? Tony Khan, if you watch this show, and I know you do, give us Okada versus Max Caster just so they can prove all these haters wrong that they could cut it up.
Oh man, that just says AEW Rampage. That just says, check it out, 11:45 after basketball on a Sunday night. Max Caster versus Okada.
Max Caster versus Okada would be good. I would tune in for it and I would love it. I would clip out the entire. Okay, Tony Khan, please do that. And then please just give me the rights for a little bit so that I can replay the match in its entirety whilst Flobo is on with me on this show and he can watch it and we can both watch it. And I can make him sit in his wrongness.
10 minutes ago, I said our booking will burn a company to the ground. It's decisions like that. You do not want to do that at all.
Tony Khan, you know what to do. You know what to do.
This video.
Ed Shield says Takeshita versus Danielson. That'd be fun. I think they'd have a good one. And then Tut Grass says Jack wants to know if he's crazy. Most people pay a therapist for that. You guys are my therapist. Haven't you figured that out yet?
It is. Facts. It is.
Oh, Bigfoot Sneakerhead. Super Chat says just left the AEW pay-per-view. The crowd really hated Mercedes of the night. I believe was a lot of match. Bigfoot, let me know any other takeaways you had. Who, like, of course, other people who are over or popular with the crowd, people who maybe weren't, or surprises. What was the crowd like there? I always like to get the inside the arena report. If you post it here too, you don't even have to worry about the super chat. I hope my bosses over at Wrestling Inc. didn't hear me say that. But
is he saying he has a Bigfoot and is into sneakers, or is he like a fan of like a Sasquatch that wears sneakers?
He is the Sasquatch that is a sneakerhead.
No, don't call him a Sasquatch.
Well, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Okay,
that's
I'm a size 13. I get it.
But he's the Bigfoot. That's why his name is Bigfoot Sneakerhead.
I ask questions, man. You know, that's all.
So let's move on. This thing has totally gone off the rails. Owen Hart Foundation men's tournament quarterfinal. Bryan Danielson versus Shingo Takagi. Danielson gets the tar beaten out of him and is checked on by doctors, but he's eventually able to get the win and move on to the tournament. Faces Pac on Wednesday. This was a good matchup. I thought it was cool to see. I like the story that was told, I guess, of Bryan Danielson injured, hurt, getting beat up, coming back, and eventually getting the win. What are your thoughts so far on the Owen Hart tournament and this matchup?
Tournaments are great. Celebrating Owen Hart is always great. I know that people have said, well, Owen Hart has never worked for AEW, but I do think that we should be past that discussion or whatever, flack or whatever. The match is great. When I think about Forbidden Door and New Japan and AEW, one of the first players I always wanted to see is Shingo. So it was cool to see him in the match against Bryan Danielson. Here is somebody that could have been forced into retirement at least 3 times or 4 times in his career. He's still going. The match was great. In fact, I have it pegged as my favorite match of the evening. I know it's not a popular choice, but that was the first time I really perked up in a contest today.
Yeah, we have a lot of comments here, by the way, that agree with me. But Ed Shield says, "Oh my God, what a story in the ring! The Dragon versus the Dragon." And Shingo, Killer Demon says Shingo beat the hell out of him. Yeah, I love this. I mean, shock. Bryan Danielson had a great match. Who would have thought? But I love this. I think I want to see Bryan Danielson move on and win the whole thing. Maybe we'll save some of that for a little bit later in the show. We talk about the World Championship, but I would definitely love to see Bryan Danielson go all the way and then face the winner of tonight's main event at All In personally. So everyone, let me know your thoughts. I don't know if there's really much more to take away from this one. The tournament's still being told, obviously. But we do have Sean Bush saying Okada versus Jarrett. Just let me have it. I definitely want to see Jeff Jarrett. We talked about this on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Jeff Jarrett in this tournament. When I first saw his name, I was like, Jeff Jarrett in this tournament, he's not doing really much of anything. And then you think about the history of him and Owen, and if you've seen some of the promos he's been cutting on X, dude, I'm kind of sold. I want to see him go to the finals. Like, I am all in on a Jeff Jarrett run to the final. I'd like to see Bryan Danielson win it, but I'm all in on Jeff Jarrett having a Cinderella run in the name of Owen Hart.
I feel like I'm an old man because when Jeff Jarrett was slotted in, I was like, yeah, of course. I mean, I'll be slotted in if I'm Jeff Jarrett as well. And one of the things about tournaments, just because of how they laid out and then how they advance, it's very hard to pull wrestling great storylines for them. Like if you're watching, you can say, oh, he beat them and they beat them or they got involved. But you have someone entering an entire thing to honor their friend. That's like a Street Fighter storyline. I am all on board. Give me Okada and Jarrett, but definitely give me Jeff Jarrett on the Cinderella run. I'm all on board about that.
Yeah. I'm loving it so far. Bigfoot Sneakerhead got back to us, says a size 15.
Okay.
The crowd was amazing. They really like Will Ospreay. So
can I just say I'm proud of that, because if you're a certain age, you remember if you're above a size 10, the shoes designs used to change. You couldn't wear them because you'll get laughed at. So the fact you're a sneakerhead now proves there's a light at the end of every tunnel out there, y'all. Appreciate you.
I never had trouble finding shoes because everything just works out for me in life.
Of course it does.
We move on to the AEW Women's World Championship. Toni Storm versus Mina Shirakawa. Pretty straightforward win by Toni Storm. Toni retains, and afterwards, they're all hugs and kisses. Flobo, I was shocked by this match ending with really no shenanigans.
Yeah, it was a clean match up and down. I thought for sure someone would have turned on someone else. Maybe Toni Storm was getting the double cross and everything now. But, if this is going to be the end of this chapter, I'm okay with that. Why give me the tease? Everyone's friends. We love friendship. Let's see what happens next for them as a trio.
Yeah, of course, this is wrestling. So they all left as friends, but we know it's not going to stay that way because that's just not the way pro wrestling works. Of course, with Mina Shirakawa, I apologize, Mariah May, winning earlier on in the night, she is advancing in her tournament. I think we're kind of seeing a preview of where that may be headed. This was a match. This match was great, by the way. I thought this was for me, this is where I really started buying in. Of course, we had the Bryan Danielson match earlier. This one, I started really buying into the quality of matches in the show at this point, because this one also had a lot of character. This one had a lot of story. I thought this was just a buffet of what you're looking for in pro wrestling. I thought it hit all the right notes. Big fan of everything that happened, but this is where I texted you about it. Nigel McGuinness is an absolute treasure on commentary. He was fantastic when they all hugged at the end and he stood up crying, clapping. Nigel deserves some flowers. He is an absolute star on commentary. I love that guy.
He's one of the best to do it, and it's perfectly the kind of analyst, wow, that people want. An ex-competitor who's able to really tell what's going on in the ring, explain it to those who are new of it, but definitely have those character moments. Bayless hitting the shoulders of Taz and Excalibur, crying and standing up. I mean, this guy's been killing it for 7-8 years on the microphone. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, his work in NXT UK was fantastic as well, alongside Andy Shepherd. So I'm just happy to see him get a big stage like Forbidden Door, and I hope we get to see more of him. 89 Brainchild, give me a hard time. How do you get Mina's name right and gave up on, how do I pronounce? I'm sorry, Suji? Am I saying it?
Don't troll him.
Suji?
Stop.
I don't know. I really don't know how to pronounce it, so I feel bad. That's why I didn't want to say it wrong. I feel bad when I get people's names wrong, and I'm honest. I struggle. I just have learned how to say Mina Shirakawa's name, so I say it. But it's a real thing. I'm being honest with you. I struggle. I try to get everyone's names right in the chat. It's something I struggle with. I'm working on it.
Look at this guy. Says I'm from Parkland, Washington. Said I'm a terrible person. He goes, guys, be nice to me. I'm human. I make mistakes. Which one is it, Jack? Are you a heel or a face?
All I want is everyone's sympathy and empathy. Joe C says, I know I'm late, but I'm still lurking. Good to see you, Joe. So we again move on to Zack Sabre Jr. versus Orange Cassidy. Good technical matchup with Sabre getting the win here. 2 questions for you, Flobo. Was this an upset, considering it was an AEW pay-per-view and Zack Sabre was an outsider? And is it time for Orange Cassidy to evolve?
The answer is no and yes. Zack Sabre Jr. on paper is going to be Orange Cassidy on paper. If you're playing a card game, if you're playing a simulation on a video game and in real life, I didn't expect a submission. I thought it was going to be a pin. So I would have lost that theoretical parlay if I were to do that. But yes, Orange Cassidy is in a weird position because AEW plays everything so serious because everyone's a competitor. You kind of need characters to give us some levity. I don't care if it is Joe Hendry. I don't care if it is Santino. I don't care if it's anyone of that ilk. You need someone to break up some of the serious moments. But Orange Cassidy has been that for so long. Can we still smile at the thumbs up? And do we still chuckle at when the Dapper Yapper says he's from wherever? So I do think it's now time for an evolution. And it's weird because we have a match with Chris Jericho who evolves like almost weekly, it seems. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's time for something for Orange Cassidy to put himself into.
I love Orange Cassidy. I'll never forget the first time I saw him wrestle, which I was late to the party for a lot of Southern California wrestling fans. I didn't see him first wrestle until Revolution and AEW when he faced Pac. And I remember thinking, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if this character, I don't get it. I saw him wrestle and I was blown away. I said on another after show, after Buzz TV at the time, I had a smile from ear to ear that entire match. I loved it. He's a star. I'm going to say this, though. I like the character. I like what he does. I do think it's time for an evolution. I'm not saying he needs to change. I think he can still be who he is. But you can't tell me he's a lazy guy who doesn't care when he also tries really hard during his matches and wants to be a workhorse. I think it's okay to be maybe reluctant and maybe, a little passive, but you can't tell me you're the lazy guy and that you're the hardest working guy in the room at the same time.
That happens all the time. You ever go to your mechanic and he's like, yeah, you got to change that and fix that. I'll get to it. And then when they do it, they get to work. You can do a little bit of both, can't they? So what would you suggest? What would you suggest if you had a chance to change or update Orange Cassidy?
Like I said, I think to be more of maybe reluctant, like the reluctant hero in a movie. You think of all the characters that I feel like the 90s were all these characters. Arnold Schwarzenegger played the guy that's like, look, I just want to live in this my cabin in the woods alone. And they'd be like, sorry, Murdoch, we need you for one last mission. And then he'd be like, I don't want to, but they have your kid. Fine. Wait. I didn't want to get involved in this.
Oh, that was the plot of Commando. You want Orange Cassidy to be Commando with the paint and the I'll get you, Alyssa Milano. Okay. You want him to do that?
Would Commando not work in pro wrestling?
Because once you murder your opponent, they ain't coming back, Jack.
Have you seen Braun Breaker?
Fair enough. But still. You want the Orange Cassidy Protection Agency, this commando guy sitting on top of the rock, be like, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, okay. And just started shooting at people, throwing grenades.
Could you imagine? That's so funny. Could you imagine if Orange Cassidy was like in the APA and they're like, here, I'm going to pay you money to protect me. And then the person gets jumped and beat up. He's like, where were you? And he's like, oh, you wanted me to start right away?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't know you want to start right now.
What is going on? This is why you shouldn't host these shows anymore. Orange Cassidy needs to go save his theoretical kids. Child free, Sean Bush has your kid. What are you going to do, Orange Cassidy? Oh no!
I mean, I feel like it's time for him to, I guess, just grow into more of an. I don't think he needs to suddenly become like, act like he's super. I'm into everything and excited to be here and all that other stuff. But
sure,
I think there's got to be that next level of, okay, I'm no longer the guy. Even if he's a little reluctant, even if he's a little bit like, oh man, I guess I do have to be the guy that steps up. I guess I do have to do this. You know what? I don't want to be the guy that has to come out here and put on a hard match, but I'm going to, because this is what I got to do. Maybe accepting his role at this point instead of just the same laziness. You know what I mean?
That I can work with, but him just painting his face and dropping into rings on rescue missions is kind of weird. So.
Not to be a little bit braggy, but I guess I will be. I was watching this show, Flobo, and you and me are part of this. You've worked behind the scenes in pro wrestling. Of course, you've done ring announcing. I've done some ring announcing and commentary, a few interviews and whatnot. And we've also interviewed people part of shows like this. And there was a lot of folks on the show that's thinking, man, I've had the chance to interact with these people. I got to call a match for Zack Sabre Jr. a while back. And in fact, he said I looked dapper in my suit. So I am always going to be a fan of Zack Sabre Jr. That guy is really good.
The truth comes out. You're easily bought, easily swayed.
Oh, that truth was, I thought that was very clear.
It's common knowledge, yeah.
I have a shirt that says that.
I'm easily swayed. I'm easily bought and swayed. I love it.
Ed Shields says Jack is killing people. Adonde says, get to the chopper. Brian H. Waters in the house. My guys, good to see you, Brian.
Brian
some
Waters.
of the people we've talked to is because of guys like Brian H. Waters. If you go back to our ringer days, actually.
Oh yeah, I'm a ringer reject, and I'm proud of it too.
So
that's a good run.
Hey, I still got some of those free shirts I wear.
Oh, you too? Oh man, do you work on Spotify? Used to.
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh man, let's keep this going. We got Samoa Joe, Hook, and Shibata versus Jeff Cobb, Chris Jericho, and Big Bill. Lots of big moves to close it out, with Hook pinning the For the World champion. It's the learning tree. Flobo, can I hear your best impression of the opening to Chris Jericho's song?
Absolutely not. I can't do it. It's awful. And even Taz is like, hey, it's not the For the World Championship. What a travesty. But finally, some justice tonight.
He gets a little bit more heated than that.
Hey, I'm trying
he
to,
is unhappy about that, which I enjoy. But I thought this was a good middle of the pay-per-view, fun matchup with big moments. Didn't feel too serious. One to kind of bring some levity after some of the more technical matchups in there. Bigfoot Sneakerhead says, oh my God, the crowd wanted Chris Jericho to retire.
Dang, Long Island, you're savages.
I love the chance. There was the you still got it. No, you don't.
If I hear that chant, I don't care if I'm in church. I don't care if I'm on stage. I'm quitting right then and there.
But I enjoy it. I think I want to start off with Big Bill. Big Bill, he needs some TV time. He needs that guy. His name's Big Bill. I get it. He's big. But when you see him in the ring standing next to like Shibata, you don't that's when you realize, man, this guy is big.
I'm with it. And I think that's the biggest, not travesty, but the biggest takeaway for me in this matchup. There's like 4 guys in this match that could be easily in the main event. And the former W. Morrissey himself looks even bigger as he gets older here. But Jeff Cobb was in this match. Samoa Joe was in this match. Like, these are all guys that either contended or can contend for the main event.
Jeff Cobb is that dude also. I love Jeff Cobb, man. That guy, he is just a knot of ugly muscle that throws people around. I love it. This guy, he is just so big, and I feel like he can throw anybody with ease. And that choke slam on Samoa Joe, that was wild, Flobo. Do I need to say any more? Ed Shields here saying Cobb versus Joe. Let's go.
Absolutely. I'll be the first one to say that we have a little bit of an idiomatic expression that Jack and I do in the group chat, and it's, would you buy the merch? And it could be literal. It could be you actually buying a t-shirt from somebody, or do you support somebody you would do something like invest in them? I think of all the independent wrestlers in the world, I have more Jeff Cobb merch than anybody else. I'm a huge fan of Jeff Cobb. It's kind of weird, kind of comes and goes in AEW, but I hope he sticks around because that guy can be box office.
I've had the chance to call some of his matches as well, and he's one of, like, when you see him up close and personal lift people at the size that they are as effortlessly as he does, it's like gravity turns off. Like, gravity turns off for Pac so he can fly. Gravity turns off for Jeff Cobb so he can make other people fly. He just throws people. It's insane. Jeff Cobb is great. And using the old buy the merch line, I'm going to use something a little different. My name's Jack Farmer, and in my fields, I'm planting a learning tree.
I hate this. I hate this, and I hate you. There's enough trees in Washington.
I live in California now. We got too many palms. Time for a learning tree.
No one will go to your learning tree at all. Thanks, guys. Thanks.
You want some shade? It's under the learning tree with the redwood and the bad apple. I want them to add another group just so they can come up with more tree names. I'm loving it. So
I do not.
We get to where this is where the pay-per-view though really felt like it started rolling. And by the way, Ethan Cruz with a really great chat here says the learning tree. Sit under it, man.
I'd rather not. I'm good. Not doing it.
You may disagree, but I've saved this chat for now. Jack is cooking.
Ed, what did you do? You did it everywhere. You told you that I have a whole banner printed out.
Arthur saying, I'm a branch on Jack's tree. Oh, thank you, Arthur.
Arthur, no.
So this is where the pay-per-view though truly felt like it started like rolling for me. Like,
Agreed.
It's funny because this was a long show, but it actually, of all the AEW pay-per-views for me, this one didn't feel as long. This one felt like we got a lot of stuff in. And ladder match for the vacant TNT Championship, Takeshita versus Briscoe versus Perry versus Martin versus Rush versus El Phantasmo. Train wreck of a match, which is what you'd expect from this many people in a ladder match. Jack Perry gets the win. The big question, did the right guy win?
Well, the only guy won, to be honest with you. But before I get to that, I want to say you're absolutely right. This pay-per-view was well-paced. I didn't think it was kind of dragging on like how some other events did. Not to knock one. I know there's some different people opinions, but I really like the pacing of this one. But you were talking about this while the match was happening. Takeshita, we like. Briscoe, we like as well. Even Dante Martin. All these guys can theoretically go. But the idea of the TNT Championship being almost presented to Jack Perry and him coming out and sauntering with the ring with a goat's head because he is the scapegoat, it kind of felt that you're watching the coronation of an uncrowned champion. And when it actually happened, it was like the prophecy was fulfilled.
Well, let me ask you this, because Jimmy Corderas has said, and I get what he's saying too, is that they should have gifted him the title, because if he's a bad guy, we would hate him for having it given to him, but then have to defend it in a match like this. Like, sucker, now that you're the champ, now you have to defend it, and this is our way of getting back at you. And then he wins that way. Do you think, I get that feeling, but there is that mental idea of if someone's given the title, it doesn't feel as prestigious. Do you think it was right for him to have to win it first? Or do you think, again, it's hindsight, but do you think maybe it should have just been gifted to him or done differently?
I think this should have been defended like how it was. It's hard because the TNT championship, even though it's one of the oldest championships in AEW, the design, the fact that it's been defended not as frequently as other ones, it's not really on top of mind. So here's an opportunity to have people care about something. And I think that was what makes it important. Because if Jack was giving the AEW World Championship, I would go, oh yeah, this is a travesty of injustice and all that. But being given like the Continental Classic title or the TNT title now, it's like, all right, well, thanks, So yes, give it some stakes, and we saw some stakes today. People were driven through tables like a stake in the heart. And when Jack actually wins a matchup, we go, okay, new chapters here.
Yeah, I think that this was absolutely the right guy to win. I agree. Yeah, the only real person to win, the only person that really felt like he was presented as someone contending for a title before this title shot. I want to say though, I love Jack Perry. I think what he has done since coming back, and really what he started doing in New Japan Pro Wrestling, has been fantastic. I don't want to get into a whole debate over video footage that was shown, because I feel like that's just one of these arguments that never goes away.
I think the Jungle Boy debates. I was like, Jungle Boy debates are still happening?
No, but I think since he's come back, I think he has been incredible. I think he has leaned into it in just the right way. I think he has really taken advantage of this. I think him as a champion is fantastic. I love what he's doing. To me, he's my favorite part of what the Elite is doing, so I want to see more and more of him. So I'm happy he got the win here. I want to talk about Briscoe for a quick second, though. I think he's going in my group. I think he's going in my Juice Robinson, Gabe Kidd, now Mark Briscoe trio of guys who are just fired up and crazy, and like you get them on a microphone and they're wild and you have no idea what they're going to say. I think Mark Briscoe goes in that group, Flobo.
Absolutely. If I had to pick someone not Jack Perry to win this one, Briscoe would have been my marker. I know there's a looming cloud with a number of titles, but you want someone to really care about a championship, strap it to somebody who's completely unhinged. Doesn't matter if you're Moxley, doesn't matter if you're Briscoe. That right there prints money.
So it'd be interesting. So where would you like to see the TBS championship go next, Flobo? What would you like to see him, like, who would you like to see as the person trying to take the title from him? Would you like him to defend it regularly? Would you like him to be the guy that hides from defending it? How would you like this new era of the TBS title to look?
Yeah, I do think that Jack Perry has to actually have more matches. I know that Christian Cage was good about talking a big game about fathers for weeks before defenses, but I do think having the inverse workhorse where someone just keeps finding ways to win week after week and basically make it to a functional television title is what I would do. Jack Perry, there's a lot of mystique around him, whether you like him or not. Sort of a new character, but this new character has to be solidified, meaning I got to see it every week. I got to learn this new language. I got to see these visual cues on a regular basis for me to actually buy in.
I love it. I'm with you. So Toni, by the way, says, it's funny you say that, Jack. Mark Briscoe out of character is just how he is in character. He actually lives craziness. I mean, he has no front teeth. Of course, I believe you. I believe that's how he is. He's just whenever he's on TV, he's entertaining, man. He is just full blown, whatever he's doing. Let's talk a little bit about, let's review it. This is what our job is, right? The winner takes all title for title match. AEW TBS champion Mercedes Moné versus New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong Women's Champion Stephanie Vaquer. Mercedes wins, and then Britt Baker, DMD, shows up. Flobo, of course, big win for Mercedes. It's her big, I guess, her big defense. Something she could put on the resume is like, now she's had the title, she's defended it in a big way. But the story here is Britt Baker coming back at the end of the match.
Well, there's 3 stories here, but that's the one that gives me the most confusion. But let's talk about the actual match here. Mercedes Moné is on a run. She had to win this match to make sure she's back to solidify herself in this current run. Stephanie Vaquer, though, here is somebody with literally or relatively little fanfare, over-delivered with what she had to do to defend that title. I think a lot of people walked away going, oh my gosh, I want to see more of what Stephanie can offer, which is the best thing you can do for any kind of performer. Leave them want more. But that way that match ended, forget the Celtics chant, forget the crowd booing Mercedes. The way that match ended with Britt Baker coming out, enough to get her pyro, and then walking away, just raises so many questions. Why not go down there and say, hey, look, before you got here, that was my yard? Why not go down there and say, hey, look, DMD is back? Having Britt Baker show up and go, haha, peace, was like, well, does that mean you're afraid of Mercedes? Does that mean you're passing the torch? Does that mean you give up? I don't know.
You know, I agree with the Britt Baker thing. I love seeing Britt Baker back. Let's say that right off the bat. I think that it's fantastic that she's back. And I think everyone's going to be happy to see her. I think that the battle of the DMD versus CEO chance is going to be awesome to see. I think this is great for the women's division all around. But I agree that she came out with all the fanfare and then just turned around. It was a little bit like, oh, okay. Like, I get, and even on commentary, they alluded, we understand what that means, that we get what that message is typically sending. But I agree with you. It felt a little bit like you came out, like you did all this fanfare just to turn around and leave. Like, I feel like that should have been a moment of, yeah, Britt Baker comes out, maybe said something on the mic. Didn't have to be a long promo, but something like, enjoy your championship now, because soon, instead of CEO, they're going to be chanting DMD. Boom. And then leave. Like something.
I legit thought that was the case because Mercedes Moné has done a lot. She's fantastic in the ring. They told a good story in this matchup, but the crowd was not into Mercedes at all. And it did feel like they were distracted. They were actually chanting other things. So here is somebody, Mercedes, that has CEO in her music. She's actually doing, I'm a CEO. How cool would it have been if Britt Baker was in her face, said nothing, and was DMD? And just have the crowd with that says, look, you may have these two pieces of gold, but I'm the true people champion. Give me that up close thumbnail moment of them together face to face, and I'll be completely satisfied.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I want to go back. Of course, we're talking about this division. So first off, I want to talk about Stephanie Vaquer, because she is, this is my first time seeing her in a match, just to be honest. I'd never seen her before. I've obviously seen some clips, or I've seen some, especially as we've been building up to this, I've learned a little bit about her, but I've never sat and watched a match of her. So this is my first real look at what she can do. And I was blown away, absolutely blown away. I thought her entrance was great. Her presence was great. Her in ring, she was incredible. I think she absolutely, as the kids say, cooked. I think she was incredible. I am thinking to myself, if I am Tony Khan, I'm saying, how do we get her here full time? The same way I think that when people at WWE saw Jordan Grace, I'm looking at the way AEW is seeing Stephanie Vaquer. I think that is someone that they need to sign. I'm thinking, if you can get her, I look at this women's division, and it is right now could be, I think it is actually the greatest women's division that they've ever had. When you look at Mercedes Moné, you look at Willow Nightingale, you look at Thunder Rosa, Britt Baker returning, Chris Statlander, and I'm just trying to name people off the top of my head, but like Toni Storm, Mariah May. I mean, they've got a incredible roster, and now we're actually seeing storylines and things building up for them. Could we be seeing a turning point in this women's division, one that we've been waiting for, frankly, for 5 years?
Yeah, the short answer is yes, because the bodies were always there. The talent was always there. For me, I think splitting the division, TBS and the women's division, was a bit too premature in AEW's growth. So you had people on two different divisions being spread out between Rampage and eventually Collision. But now you're getting that backfill, you're getting secondary, you're getting tertiary storylines away from titles, which is always a good sign. And we're also getting different fighting styles and types. You got luchadors, you got powerhouses, you got technical ones. So it's something for everyone. All we need now is more than 2 segments on a Dynamite, and we'll be in business.
Yep. Yeah, Bigfoot Sneakerhead says the crowd really, really liked Stephanie. Plus, Stephanie was amazing. Adonde says, yeah, on paper, not performance-wise yet, I gotta disagree. I look at even just this show. I thought Chris Statlander and Willow were great. I think Soraya and Mariah May were great. I think Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa were great, and I think Stephanie and Mercedes were great. I mean, that's 4 matches that got time, were great, and had stories built into them. So I do think it's getting there. I do think that I'm not saying it's like equal footing. Trust me, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying this is more than just, oh, there's one new signing, maybe this is it. Like, there's actually stuff happening.
I mean, look, I don't run a wrestling company, nor should I ever. But I just think that the staff has to trust talent. I think when you have almost 2 years or 3 years of the match being at the 9:30 spot where everyone's kind of promoting the main event, it was distracting for what was happening in the ring, even though if you turn the sound off, week per week and month per month, the actual in-ring competition was getting a lot better. All we're asking for now is maybe 2 segments, 3 segments, throw me in a promo. Hey, someone stepped on my big foot shoes backstage. I want a match. And so it seems like a living, breathing division with interpersonal conflicts. That's how you draw casual fans in. You could do title matches and the cows come home, but I think about people we love, wrestlers we love. It's always like, hey, D'Lo Brown wouldn't do this, he would do this, or she would do that. I think you get more of those character moments away from title matches.
And again, I'm not saying that they're there. There's definitely still work to do. It's just, again, I feel like now all those matches had stories going into them, which I think is very telling, as opposed to this is the new number 1 contender. Because also there's Deonna Purrazzo and had a story with Thunder Rosa, which wasn't represented here, but we've been seeing that. Serena D has been doing just a lot of stuff is there. But we get to one of our world championship matches, or the next world championship match, I should say. IWGP heavyweight championship match. Moxley versus...
Whoa. You skipped the thing, man. The
What
big announcement. Wrestle Dynasty.
Oh, I thought that was already announced. Was this the first time it was announced? Dynasty? I thought that
not the first time it was announced, but it was definitely a big deal. The second day of Wrestle Kingdom, Wrestle Dynasty, CMML, ROH, AEW together.
I mean, aren't we watching that right now? Aren't we covering?
But it's going to be in Japan, man.
But they're going to do it again.
Forget it. Anyway, our next championship match.
Okay. Dynasty. Second night of Wrestle Dynasty. Second night of Wrestle Kingdom. Ed Shields saying, "Let's go, Flobo." Ed Shields, you are losing.
Hey.
You were one of my favorites for a minute here, but I'm gonna backtrack that a little bit. But I mean, that's cool. I do think it's good that AEW is co-promoting something in Japan now. I've always thought once they started doing the Forbidden Door thing, the next step was now you got to go to Japan. And especially now that we got to compare, because we got to compare now that WWE is really going all over the world. Sure. AEW, if you want to continue to compete, at least in that way, you've got to start going to other countries and you've got to start taking advantage of those markets, especially before WWE gets an even stronger foothold in those markets. So I think it's good for them, Flobo. I'm glad you stopped the flow of the show for that.
Anytime, baby. No, but look, let's be real. Like there was a time where Wrestle Kingdom was 2 days. With it going back to 1 day and New Year's Dash, I was thinking about where is that going to land the calendar. With AEW and ROH and CMML and Stardom on this mega show between New Year's Dash and Wrestle Kingdom, this now becomes a destination event. 3 straight nights of now talent from all over the world is going to be there. I'm not saying that it will change my need to go to Japan in January, but I bet someone might and go, you know what? Now's my time to make my wrestling pilgrimage and get a Riberia Steakhouse jacket. I'm going to Japan for this event.
Well, it's also, I've always been a big fan of you should reward fans, and you have fans in Japan, and you should allow them the opportunity to see you have an event in their country so they can, see it live. Just the way I say the same thing about WWE when they go to different countries there, when they go to France. It's great for the fans in France to finally get to see a show live. So I think it'd be cool if they did that as well. So good for them. I'm glad they're doing that, and I'm glad it's happening, and I hope they do it more. Next, they need to go to Mexico so CMLL can have a home field advantage. You know what I'd like to start seeing, Flobo, now that they're doing this more often?
What's that?
I like competition. I like it when I like keeping score. You know, I feel like now you've got AEW, you got New Japan Pro Wrestling, you got CMLL. I don't know why I said the initials for AEW and CMLL, but I read out New Japan Pro Wrestling in full. That's just the way I did it.
Hey, I like it.
I want to start this is the Olympics. I want us to keep track of who's winning matches. I want them to go into Dynasty saying, look, AEW wrestlers won 3 out of 5 matches. It's 3-2. New Japan, you got to start winning more matches. We're up.
Even like a World Cup? Like what's best in the world?
Yeah,
didn't Shane McMahon win the last one? Wasn't he the best in the world for like 6 months?
The best in the
world. That was great. No, I'm with you. I keep score. I'm down.
I think we should have some kind of way to tell, like, okay, who's winning this? So like I can go into these matches with like a Zack Sabre Jr. versus Orange Cassidy, like we had earlier in the night. And it's not just these two are having a match. I want them to be like, well, we're down a match. And so Orange Cassidy really needs to win this one for AEW. And now it's no longer just a thing. It means something, And you and I both know the score will always be relatively close.
Sure.
But we're wrestling fans. We'll still be tied into it. Who cares?
I like it, but there's no captain. So that's why it's kind of weird. It's like when Survivor Series rolls around and Raw starts to care for some reason. You're like,
Tony Khan is the captain of Team AEW, and we're Team AEW because we're in America. And
you want Tony Khan to be out there every week being like, guys, we're low on points. You want Tony Khan.
And with the 4th of July on the horizon, I will not sit by idly and allow you to not cheer for these great United States.
Half the rosters from international countries. Like, it doesn't really.
That is not what these farmers, the backbone of America, stand for.
Christian Cage is Canadian, for example.
America.
All right, sure.
Listen, you're the one that started us down this path on AEW Dynasty.
I'm just saying, Wrestle Dynasty is a big deal. It's a 3-day event, man.
It is a big dynasty, but Tony Khan, I know you're still watching.
Christopher Daniels
and Tony Khan. Hey, you can have the numbers game here. Do what you can. I want you to start keeping track because I know us Americans are number 1 in the world, baby. And I want everyone to know that when AEW trounces NJPW and CMLL.
You can't say America's best in the world with literally the next match you're going to review. it's USA versus Japan. Okay, whatever.
I got 3 words for you, Flobo.
What's that?
USA.
Okay. I'm from here too. I don't know why. Brooklyn is in the USA.
Prove it.
Prove it. I quit.
So, speaking of USA, IWGP Heavyweight Championship match. Jon Moxley takes on Naito, and it's a brawl of a matchup. Naito gets the win and is the new champion. Flobo, what I liked about this here is this to me really highlighted the power of a change of pace. We had a lot of high flying. We had the ladder match, and this one was just a brawl. And I felt like that helped keep the night feeling fresh.
Absolutely. This could have been in an alternate universe, alternate door, an opening matchup. But the fact that the IWGP Heavyweight Championship was our semi-main already gave it a bit of air. And we know Jon Moxley could go to a 4th or 5th gear when needed. So we're already on the edge of our seats, and they delivered hard-hitting affair. It definitely felt like Titans were going at it. It would have been a main event in its own right in many places, but that was only a semi-main.
Yeah. Well, Droid J with the hard truth here. Jon Moxley cost America points this evening.
It's not Hogwarts. There are no points. What is wrong with y'all, man? It's late.
You sound like a Slytherin.
That's a Ravenclaw, bro. You better stop.
Well, look, here's the thing. Jon Moxley didn't cost us points yet because we're not starting yet. We don't start the points thing until America gets a win. That's when we start it. But John, the preseason didn't go well here, if that makes sense. But John, I actually liked it. I love this matchup. I enjoyed getting to watch it. Like I said, I thought the change of pace was good, going from the high flying ladders matches and whatnot to just a brawl to a fight. I'm a big fan of Jon Moxley. I'm a fan of how Naito was. Now, again, I've said before, I don't follow New Japan Pro Wrestling super closely. I follow it. I would say like at Sports Center, follow it. Like I know the big stuff that's going on. I know the people there, and I know when big things happen, but I don't watch it regularly, if that makes sense. So, I like Jon Moxley's style, though. I like he's hard hitting. It feels like a fight. I like that he bleeds a lot. I know some people get all worked up about it. I agree with what he says, which is that's what a fight looks like. People bleed. Most UFC fights have blood in them. So I'm into it. I get it. But I like that Jon Moxley lost. And the reason I say that is because I feel like I'm ready for Moxley to get back into a main storyline within AEW again. I feel like he was in the main storyline a lot, needed to take a break, needed to get away from it for a little bit. He did that, and I think now I'm ready for him to get back into that championship level, cutting promos regularly level kind of player in AEW again.
I agree with you. I actually like the fact that Jon Moxley lost, but for a different reason. These Forbidden Door matches, I almost kind of felt like they were almost exhibitions, right? I always felt like status quo won't change as much. And so rolling into this, besides the TNT match, it really wasn't a change. We finally got a title change so late on the card, it makes you realize, wait, anything can happen. But to your point, yes, Jon Moxley was carefully on the fringe of what's going on in the AEW main event scene or the international title scene, wherever scene you want to plug him into. I'm with you. I think it's time for him to make his return.
Yeah. So let me know in the chat if you guys are ready for Jon Moxley to hop back into that world title picture, or maybe not world title picture, but just back into a serious, focused rivalry within AEW. Droid J says that's the most common sense in wrestling. It's a fight. Maria says Moxley versus Swerve. That would be interesting. I would love to see that because Swerve has shown he can really fight with the best of them.
You saw it before in the tournament, and they look like they can pretty much kill each other.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. I'm a big fan of Swerve, and let's just talk about this main event. AEW World Heavyweight Title match, Swerve Strickland versus Will Ospreay. A great matchup. Things break down when the ref gets knocked out. Callis shows up. Nana gets physical. New ref shows up. Few extra near falls before the match closes out. Respect shown after. Lots of people watching on, as far as guys like Daniel Garcia, MJF in the back. I am a huge Swerve Strickland fan. I think he needed to win this matchup. I think he has a lot to prove still as champion in a good way. I think more like he has more meat on the bone, as I like to say. Not that he has more to prove, but like there's just a lot more he can do as champion. So I'm glad he retained. I love this match. I thought it was great, top to bottom. Flobo, any thoughts?
Same with you. It could be a match at a contender. Obviously, my match was the Shingo match because I'm a big Shingo mark. This one here was great. Swerve has an unenviable position of being a champion in a time where AEW is not having its moment in the zeitgeist. Still a fantastic company, but the social media interactions, the ticket sales aren't the biggest one. So everyone's saying it's a failure. It's a failure. Not the case, because you can't be a failure if you can shut down a show after 5 hours and still have everyone on their feet rolling for you. It was hard to call. I was talking to you in our text beforehand. I'm like, it can go either way, which is always a good sign of a main event. I saw the sliding doors moment of what if Ospreay won, what would happen if Swerve would have won. But ultimately, it was a complete match from top to bottom. That's how it's done.
I think Swerve reminds me of really what I love about WWE or AEW style matches. And I think with WWE, they're very athletic. They're great. I love WWE wrestling matches, but with AEW, what I like is there's kind of like a roughness to them. There's sort of I don't know how to phrase it exactly, but like there's something about them that seems unpolished in a good way in wrestling, and I feel like that's Swerve. He's very athletic, but he takes away some of the polish, so it feels just rough and a little bit more visceral in some of the things he does, and that's what I really love about how he acts in the match and his wrestling style. I also like his promos. I like the presentation of who he is as a character. I love Prince Nana. I think it was great that Nana got mad and shoved Callis away. And I love that Nana just had that moment instead of them filming Callis scurrying away or whatever. I love that Nana got to have that, like, get off me kind of moment. That was really cool to see. I'm a big Nana fan as well. I just think that I want to see Swerve have this title for a long time. Again, I always say one of the things that is very important in wrestlers, especially if you're wrestling for a company like AEW, is to have wrestlers that no one else has, in the sense that if you're an athletic person and that's all you are, there's a lot of athletic wrestlers.
Mhm.
If you're just big, there's a lot of big wrestlers. Swerve is someone you can't find him. There's no one else has a Swerve Strickland. And that's why I think that he's someone who I think they need to keep him at the top of the business, at the top of their business. I want to see him continue to be a champion. I want to see him continue to do well, because you're not going to find him. You're not going to find someone else like him anywhere else in the world. And I think WWE has a lot of people like that. Cody Rhodes is a one of a kind. You're not going to find another Cody Rhodes. He's the only guy out. You're not going to find another Roman Reigns. Swerve Strickland obviously isn't on the same platform, but I think you're not going to find another Swerve Strickland. I don't think you're going to find another Josh Alexander. There's just certain people like that. And I think that if you've got that, you've got to keep it. Will Ospreay losing. Will Ospreay is another one of those guys I think is just special, but he'll be just fine. He's got a championship. He's already got things lined up. And I got a feeling him and MJF are going to have a collision sooner rather than later. So this just worked out great in every way to me.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Everyone looked great, even in victory or defeat. And yeah, these are what you want to have your marquee talents to be these unique, whether it's Bruv or Swerve Warrior Drive or the move sets, the timing. If you can't replicate that, that's your secret sauce.
Small thing here though is I want to point out, did you ever watch Hayabusa matches? The Will Ospreay video featured him, of course, saying Will Ospreay came out wearing tribute attire to Hayabusa. Now, I don't watch a lot of New Japan Pro Wrestling now, but back in the day, I was huge into the tapes day. And I think you and I have talked about it. We're of a certain age where you would find tapes and you would trade tapes. And I used to always go to video stores and I would get the tapes of people I didn't know. And I found myself watching like FMW, Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling, I believe stands for. Sure. And that was where Mike Awesome was before he came to ECW. Hayabusa was there. And man, he was one of those guys to me that was just this mythical, mysterious person. Because I couldn't Google him at the time, again, of a certain age. Right. So all I had was these videos of random matches. And I was like, this dude is the coolest wrestler I've ever seen in my life. Did you ever follow him or see him or have anything to say about him?
I mean, no, I think I have the luxury of doing it now or doing it as an adult. But as a kid, I didn't do much tape trading. I was kind of a Suncoast video, and when it's available, and it cost like $50 back then. Didn't trade the tapes as I should have of a certain age. But it's a word you hear, much like how Sting was for WWE guys, much like how Okada was for a long time. There's always one or two guys per generation where it's like, you don't know this guy? Oh man, he's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a big fan of his. And so in any case, I felt like this show, and a lot of people talking about FMW. Yeah, it's funny. They had amazing and insane, Huffman saying FMW had amazing and insane death matches. It's funny. I'm not a death match guy, but like at the time, I think because I was at an age too where I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. I've never seen anything like this before, and it was more spectacle to me, where now I'm at an age where I'm like, guys, you're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah, if you know how ligaments can sprain, then you're like, I don't want to see this.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm fine. I'm totally fine.
But yeah, that was really cool. Overall, I thought this was a good show. We were an hour and a half in. Onita, yes, lots of those guys. Yeah, I was huge into tape trading, and my cousin, of course, is a big time wrestling historian. If you know Matt Farmer. Speaking of, Sean Bush says, if you think about it, Swerve is kind of the anti-Cody. Funny enough, main evented Defy Wrestling's first ever show together. Speaking of my cousin Matt Farmer.
Chill.
But overall, good show. I want everyone to let me know in the chat your overall thoughts of the show. Any thoughts on any matches that stood out to you? Any individuals that stood out to you? Flobo, final thoughts on the show. this is three parts. Final parts on the show. Thoughts on the show. If you could buy stock in one person based purely on their performance tonight, who would it be? And 3, where can we find you online?
Well, before I get to all that, don't let Estas hit it. Yeah, if you're tape trading, you're just basically trading with yourself. The show is pretty good. It's a long show for sure. I'll be honest with you. Going into this pay-per-view, seeing the card, I was like, great, but is it necessary? No, this show proved that it was. And so if you have a chance to go back and check it out, I recommend that you do, which is something that I don't usually do after watching 5 hours of wrestling in the world. But yes, stuff like her, I think that'd be the person you would put stock into if you had the chance to do that. If you want someone on the male side, I know it's kind of at the buy high stage, but Will Ospreay right now. He is a former number 1 contender, I guess, to the AEW championship, but I do think there's more gold in his future. And of course, I'm on that X at Flobo Boyce. And every Wednesday, Jack Farmer and I get together and we break down NXT and a fun show we call Draped in Gold. Learn more at drapedingold.com.
Yeah, I got to agree with you as far as the person I buy stock, and Stephanie just blew me away. I was I no notes. I want to see more of her. Tony Khan, as I said, first book Okada and Max Caster, then get Stephanie sign her.
Oh man! No.
3, get me on 0 Hour. I want to be on that show. I want to be promoting your show for you. That'd be a good time. But I thought this was a great show. I want to thank everyone for joining us here in the chat. Maria, Tony, Killer Demon, Ed Shields, Fernando, BC, Bigfoot, Sneakerhead, our correspondent, our on-location correspondent, Max Feldman. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of the chat. Again, this is a new experiment for us doing these after the pay-per-view shows, so I appreciate you guys being here. If you could leave a comment after we sign off just in there, that was always appreciated as well. Just a little thanks for the show or whatever. Jack Farmer, Flobo Boyce deserve raises, whatever you guys think
please
deserve it to go in there. That is always appreciated. You can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. And I thought that this was a great show. I'll be honest, going into it, I was dreading it. I was like, this is going to be a 9.5 hour show. It's going to be a long day, but yeah, it went great. I enjoyed it. I had a fun time, and I'm looking forward to Dynamite, and that's all you can ask for. So that does it for us.
Sorry, Killer Demon's made a reference to Brooklyn Access Cable. It was called B-Cat back in the day. Remember that? Oh, not the B-Cat. Brooklyn Community Access Television, the most random show. Before Tubi, there was B-Cat.
Now, I had a Suncoast Video, and then I did, I think, RF Video. I would order online stuff. And then I did very poor tape trading. I wasn't very good at it, but a little bit of it. As I was going to say, my cousin, he's like a wrestling historian. I never tapped him for stuff because he probably had all this stuff. I could talk to him about it, but I didn't for whatever reason, because I was a dumb kid. But Tony says Jack deserves Brock Lesnar pay. I agree with that. You heard him. Wrestling Inc. Brock Lesnar pay.
They're all in bed. All the odds are up late.
I want to show up with my briefcase and have a Brock party. But in any case,
best moments of wrestling.
That does it for us. I think it's time for us to cut this one. We're gonna end it. Thank you for joining us again. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow at Wrestling Inc. And make sure to tune in tomorrow for the After Raw review show. Thank you so much for watching, especially you, Tony.